You can break me physically, but you cannot break me mentally.
Everything's external. Looking within is kind of what you're saying, is where you kind of find out who the you are.
The decision was made to effectively end her life and turn off the life support machine. And I knew that you couldn't buy yourself into this club. You had to earn that Green Beret. Within about 3 months, before I knew it, I was in Kabul, Afghanistan's capital, and learning from the offset. You're there for a reason, that adrenaline. There's no other feeling like that in life. You know, how would I react if I got shot? What type of person do I want to be if I get shot? For me, it was the best job in the world, but also the most selfish job in the world, and it took its toll on my first marriage and everything else. What they're looking for is, can you do the basic drills to a very high standard? And that's special forces through and through. If it ends now, and am I happy? Yes. Have I pushed myself? Yes. Am I happy with the type of person that I am and what I've achieved? Yes. Things that are outside of my control, I don't fucking worry about. What does success look like in 6 months? Where do you want to be? Where are you now, and where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? So you have the now, the near, the next. How the fuck can you put 5, 10 years into something and not enjoy it? That blows my fucking mind. How people can wake up, swing their legs out of bed in the morning and not be happy with what they're doing. You know, when we strip everything back, what is important to me as an individual? To be a good person, to be a good husband, and to be a good father. And that is above all else.
Quick one before we jump into this podcast. Do me a solid favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment below this video. If you're looking to remove images, videos, search results, or fake accounts online, go to contentremoval.com. But don't take my word for it. Here's Hormozy.
Frank, you're a legend. I just saw this. Layla also thinks you're a legend, which in my mind means you're which means you're a double legend in my mind. If you get my wife to think you're a legend, then you're extra cool in my mind. Dude, thank you so much, genuinely. That was such a pain.
And welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast from another location. And today, guys, I'm bringing you another unbelievable guest. I've got my friend here, well, he says he's not, but he is. He's one of the most decorated special forces guys to come out of the UK, former sniper, owner of ThruDark, Anthony Stazicker. I call you Staz, but I hate that. I hate the informative. But welcome to your factory, your studio.
The ThruDark Mecca. Yeah, mate, welcome. It's good to have you here, mate. We've been chasing each other around like ships in the night, trying to arrange and, I guess, align the stars for this podcast, mate. So it's amazing to have you down here, mate. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Mate, I'm excited too. Because I didn't realise, I knew you were smashing it in life, and I knew everything was big, but I didn't realise how big it was, how many warehouses you have, all the stuff that's going on. But I want to give people a bit of a context into your journey, because obviously me and you met in Portugal back when we were doing IFS, and we've actually done a podcast before, but we've done it live on a stage rather than in person like this. But obviously you talked to me about your upbringing and obviously, you know, your childhood and stuff like that. And I just want to take you back to that to really lead into this conversation in how you obviously got into the military. But give me a bit of an understanding of what it was like growing up for you, because obviously you grew up in up north, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess, long story long, we'll get into it. I guess, how did I end up here? How did we end up here today, sat in a shipping container, down on the south coast of England in Poole? Okay, so I was born, raised partly in Wigan, up in Lancashire. You know, it was a kind of I guess, blue-collar background, upbringing. I had fond memories of growing up as a child, kind of always being outside. I've got an older sibling, my brother, Andrew, a couple of years older than me. You know, parents raising us. It was, Wigan. It was working class. It was fun, you know, always outdoors, always kind of getting into mischief and trouble. I've never been academic in terms of school, but I enjoyed school mainly for the social aspect and the sport. I guess early on, sport was a kind of a magnet for me. It gave me an outlet and a passion and a purpose, something to kind of strive towards. At the time, you know, if you look at Wigan and what Wigan was predominantly known for, apart from pie eating, was rugby and rugby league in particular. You know, my uncle Jed, he played for Wigan. So I remember, you know, going to games as a kid and watching rugby league. You know, that was a big kind of staple for me growing up, and being surrounded by rugby in the schools. You know, but I was a decent kid. You know, I wasn't in trouble too much. It was fun. It was exciting, like I said. So that kind of took me kind of primary school years, and those are vivid memories for me, but fun memories. I just remember always being outside, always playing, whether that was kind of, I was not playing rugby, I'd be out on the skateboard or the mountain bike or at the parks with other kids and my brother, and kind of have fond memories of that time, I guess. I guess my first major kicking the balls, for want of a better analogy, was my parents splitting up. Now, that was a shock to me as I don't know, maybe a 7-year-old kid. I can't remember how old I was, 6 or 7. You know, everything's fine from the outside looking in. You don't know as a kid. You kind of have those senses. You have an understanding, but I don't remember them arguing. I don't remember, you know, being raised in an unloving family where it was, you know, obvious to me as a kid that there were issues, you know, from their relationship point of view. So it seemed to then happen quite quickly. You know, before I knew it, my parents were divorced. They'd split up, and we relocated with my mum. So me and my brother moved to Mansfield in Nottingham, and she remarried. So now we're kind of in a strange area. We've had to switch schools. You know, geographically, we're moved from Wigan down into Mansfield. Again, not too dissimilar. Sort of for those people that know Mansfield, it's a working man's town. You know, there's lots of pit villages around there. So not too dissimilar to where I'd come from. The main change was, you know, the kind of environment now that I was in. I was being raised in, you know, under different circumstances. We had a stepfather that we had to adjust to. And I think with the beauty of hindsight now and me maturing slightly and being a little bit older myself and understanding, you know, I've been through a divorce and understanding the mechanics and the emotion that's involved with that. I kind of, at the time, growing up, it was just pure hate towards this man, you know, this our stepfather, you know. But given time, given understanding, and now me being able to step back and understand that situation, maybe I probably judged him a little bit too harshly. I think, you know, it's hard as a kid, isn't it? You just want to fit in. You don't want to be different. You don't want people looking at you. You just want to move within the right circles, and it's difficult, you know, to try and manage that as a kid. So me and my brother move up. We're in Mansfield, new school. You know, we're into this primary school. I get involved. I'm sort of looking around at the time thinking, where's all the fucking rugby posts? It's a complete change of sport. It's football, which I'd never really played before. So I was fucking terrible as well moving in. Obviously, new kid in school. Do you play football? No. All right, you get in the fucking net. So, you know, and all fucking 2'10" of me at the time, not much change to now, was stuck in goal. So we're kind of adjusting. Everything's great. You know, I've embedded fairly well, you know, bar the odd few scraps to sort of learn your pecking order and your place within the school, a few headlocks and all that kind of good stuff. I got some good friends, and I start playing football. I sort of moved my energy now into sport like I'd always done, but just changed the game. The ball shape changed slightly, you know, so I adjusted. And this is going on for a couple of years, and I start playing football regularly. I'm training twice a week. I'm involved with a local football club, and I start very quickly turning my hand to that. You know, I start becoming quite good. I then start getting picked up for a local professional team, Mansfield Town. You know, everything's kind of moving well in that direction. I'm playing obviously for the school football team. I'm captain. I'm doing really well. And around about the age of 11, just before I'm about to transition into secondary school, I probably had the biggest smack in the face when my mum suddenly passed away. It was a brain hemorrhage. It was literally overnight. You know, 1 minute she's there, the next she's gone. And for me, it was, looking back, obviously quite a fucking traumatic experience as a kid. But it's strange looking at the emotion now and looking back. At the time, you want it to go away. You don't want that tension that I mentioned earlier as a kid, that beam of everybody feeling sorry for you, everybody focused on you for all the wrong reasons, you know. And it was a time that, you know, I was raised, it's worth saying as well. So as this happened, you know, I was up, thankfully me and my brother were up with my father for the weekend up in Wigan. So we didn't actually physically get to see that happen. But, you know, 1 minute we were hugs, kisses on the Friday, driving up to Wigan with my dad, weekend. I remember him sitting us down on the Sunday and sort of delivering that fucking god-awful news to us about what had happened. And at the time, you're 11, what's a brain hemorrhage? What does that mean? You know, she'll be okay. Surely she'll be all right, you know. And it was serious, clearly. You know, she was in an induced coma straight away. And we went back home, straight to the hospital. We had about a week of just being in and out of hospital. My mum was, like I said, in an induced coma. And we could hear the mutterings and everything else going on with the doctors, the back and forth. Look, you know, the qualitative, or the quality of her life, if she pulls through this, will be, you know, severely changed, you know. So I think after about a week, the decision was made, you know, with not really an end in sight and the light at the end of the tunnel being super small. The decision was made to effectively end her life and turn off the life support machine. So my world changed immediately from that day. You know, it was turned upside down, inside out, emotionally and everything else. So I then went to secondary school. You know, I'd lost my mum. I was obviously in a strange place. Your emotions are all over the place as an 11. I've got an 11-year-old now, and I think about that. You know, my eldest boy, Lucas, from my first marriage. And I think about that. Fuck, you know, I was his age when that happened. How would he react to that? How would he... And I look at him, how he is mentally, you know, in terms of how mature he is at that age and how you can deal with things. You're not supposed to deal with that shit when you're a kid. But it happens, you know, life is fucking full of twists and turns. It's like fucking snakes and ladders, isn't it? It's that game, that analogy. So there's sometimes fucking ladders, you know, sometimes snakes, sometimes big snakes, sometimes little ladders, big ladders. And that was a big fucking snake, you know, I hit the bottom and I just had to deal with that on my own. I had my brother, but we didn't communicate about it. My brother's 13, you know, he's my protector. He's looked after me. He's been an amazing person in my life. So now we're in a house with a bloke that we don't really know or like, that is not abusive, but it's physical at times. You know, my brother's looking after me, you know, and looking back on it, that wasn't just all him, that was us. We were probably fucking horrible to him, you know, and we would have been.
Antagonising him, yeah.
Yeah, of course, we would have been, you know, and bear in mind, he's just lost his wife, you know, and I didn't see it like that. You know, so, but that's that thing with having the ability now to look back with different glasses on. So my grandparents moved down from Wigan, my mum's parents. They relocate, they sell up everything, and what a selfless, kind act from those guys. So they moved down into a small bungalow in the same village, and me and my brother decide to move in with my grandparents. Now that was a decision that was made. We just moved into school. We'd had all this, I guess, upheaval and the option was there to move back up with my father, but we didn't take it for whatever reasons. We were settled. We had friendship groups. We were moving to secondary school. I was playing with a professional team, etc., etc. So, you know, that caused a lot of, I guess, rifts between the family as well, and the decisions were made. But now I'm 11 years old, and I'm living in a bungalow with my brother, who's 13, with my grandparents, you know, and that's different. That comes with its own challenges as well in terms of the type of people that they are. You know, they have old school values, which, looking back, was brilliant for me. But sometimes, you know, in the moment, at the time, it's difficult to appreciate that and appreciate why they're doing things and the method behind the madness. So, yeah, we were in with a bungalow and then moved to secondary school. And for me, it was just, right, what do I fucking want to focus on now? And I think looking back, it made me quite angry. It made me quite resentful at the world. Like, why me? Why the fuck has this happened to me? I don't want this, you know. I feel all these emotions but the sadness, wasn't tears for me. It was anger. And it really lit a fucking fire in my belly and just made me want to really get out and, I guess, outlay that emotion onto the world through sport and through different methods and means. So, yeah.
Do you think the world, like, did you feel like the world was owing you a favour back then, kind of thing? Did you feel like a victim of the world?
Potentially, yeah. Definitely in the beginning, I definitely sort of had that moment of, why the fuck is this happening to me? And, you know, this is shit. But look, you know, again, looking back, adversity, you know, being introduced to adversity at a young age certainly shapes you mentally. You know, you either deal with that and lean into it and understand more about yourself. And, you know, there's probably two different paths people go. You know, the obvious path for a lot of people is it's that mentality, that victim mentality of, all right, fuck it, that's me, that's my life's fucked, you know, what do I do now? That's it, I'm just going to join, you know, this fucking group over here, I'm going to start pursuing these, you know, darker avenues down here, and what's the point? You know, there's no meaning to anything. But for me, I really used that anger and placed it, looking back now, into a good place, into sport and into football. And I used that fire and that drive to really push me forward in sport. And it was always in my mind. It was do more, work harder, you know, do you, like, not so much do your mum proud, but more, I guess, understand why I'm doing stuff to the level that I want to do it. you know, and that was a big part of it for me. So that was sort of childhood, and then through to secondary school. Now I start playing quite a high level in football. You know, it's like I'm playing for England, I'm representing England schoolboys. You know, I'm at a bigger professional club, and I'm kind of really gearing towards a life in professional football. And I'm not sitting here saying I should have been in the last fucking World Cup. You know, I'm not. By any stretch of the imagination, because that's a difficult game to get into, we all know. But I think moving through, it really helped me to channel all my emotion and energy and anger in towards that kind of that basket, I guess.
I kind of, from hearing you talk about that experience, I kind of feel like even though your mum dying, obviously, like, no one wants that for themselves, and no one wants to go through any of that. And obviously that's a terrible pain that we all, if we're lucky enough to live long enough, we all have to endure at some point in our lives, no matter how they're taken. But I think it kind of really gave you, it was your first moment where you got that relentless focus of like, okay, right, my life has to be for something now. You know, I have to turn up now and get focused on what I want to achieve, because I want to do this for my mum, I want to do it for me, I want to take myself forward. Is that kind of, in that moment, exactly how you felt? To some extent, yeah, largely driven around that. But look, it's no too different. Everybody goes through shit as a kid. You have to go through that. Everybody's been bullied. Everybody's had scraps. Everybody feels victimized, you know, probably more so now than ever in terms of the social media aspect and trying to fit in. And it's a difficult time as a kid. You know, you're navigating this world, and it's a complex world that you're navigating. But I think going through school for me, it was, you know, I'd settled into my school, but I still remember the times, you know, getting off the school bus in my local village and you know, having scraps with kids from other schools, and, you know, just having to change your shoes onto your trainers, take your blazer off, take your tie off, undo your thing, tighten down your fucking bag straps, you know, and you're off the bus and you're straight into a scrap with all these other kids from different schools. And it was a hard upbringing, you know, Mansfield and the town. It's a hard working man's town, you know. You go out for beers and you every night you're scrapping. If you're not, you know, if you're not going home with a bird, you're scrapping. And it was like that. That's just how it was, you know. And I thought that was normal, you know, for me. But it really shapes who you are as a person. It really makes you, I guess, mentally tougher and stronger. And it enables you, I think, moving forward then in life, having a different viewpoint on things, you know, in terms of what you're mentally capable of doing and how you can use adversity for a positive. So obviously when you're going through all this, you go, obviously with the football career, just to tie that up, you go to Fulham. They say to you, stay out of trouble. You go and ignore them. You snap your knee on a little bit of a naughty one. Do you want to touch on that?
It's probably worth mentioning. So for me, everything was lined up. It was all going well. Looking for at least a YTS at the time. So the youth training scholarships, as they were at the time. And, you know, we're now ending that season. I'm doing really well. Everything's going great. And we break for summer. And you get the usual speech, just look after yourself, eat well, sleep well, rest, recover, don't play any sport. If you do, just go steady. And I also used to love motocross. So motocross was a bit of a passion. So I went home, rolled the motocross bike out of the garage. There's a place near me called the Desert. I could ride from my house in between the ginnels, down the fucking dual carriageway, all the way down, and get onto what were like a desert flat or a quarry, disused quarry. But this one day I went to a track with a friend of mine. It was like just a track day, practice track day, and it was so simple, you know, just going round a corner, put my foot into a rut as you would, and it bent my foot and dislocated my knee quite badly. So, but I remember looking at the time, and I had the chap from my granddad, who's an incredible man, who supported me since I was a kid, never missed a football match. He was kind of my hero growing up, looking back now. And he just giving me the pat on the shoulder, just go steady, just please go steady. Yeah. You know, at the time when you're, what was I, 16 or whatever I was, granddad, I've got this, leave it out, I'm cool, I'm all right. And to then roll the bike back in, hobbling, and I could see his face, and I knew at the time, I was like, this isn't good. I'd kind of managed to put the knee back in and shit like that, and I went. He didn't even want you going, really. No, of course not. But you can't. This is the paradox of being a parent, and we can touch on this later in terms of you can't stop kids doing what they want to do. You can't. Yeah. It has the opposite effect. So he allowed me to do that, and with the caveat of just go steady. And what 16-year-old kid goes steady on a motocross bike? I don't know. But, that was a terrible decision now, looking back in hindsight. But look where we are.
What was it though? Because everything you have now, and the fact that just looking here now and seeing out the window, you got like 10 staff downstairs, 20 upstairs. You got people over the road, and everything you've built, and everything you've done, and everything you've achieved. I don't think it was. I think
that's why life's beautiful, isn't it? It's it's choice. It's choice. It's action, reaction, everything. And you don't know. I never live like that. I've never once thought, what if? Oh, I could have done this, and what if I'd have done that? For me, it's things happen, and all the way through my life as a kid and growing up, I've had adversity, knockbacks, and to the point I went back to Fulham, trying to mask this injury. They were really good, they put me straight into rehab. I had knee surgery, came back, rehab, and then the first game back, my knee went again in pretty much the first tackle I did. And I remember looking at my granddad, and I was just hitting the floor in pure frustration, thinking, "I fuck this." But they were good. I got rehabbed again, came back, it did it again. That was me released, and then I went to college. I was like, "Shit, now what do I do?" Okay, let's go to college. And I really was interested in mechanical engineering at the time, from cars and bikes. So I was like, okay, I'll do a scholarship in mechanical engineering, turn up to the people, and it was one of those open days at college, and it was, right, here we go, let's have a look at the grades. I didn't have the grades for maths. It's always been my gremlin. So now I'm looking around thinking, now what? I look over in the corner, there's loads of birds, and in the corner I'm like, what's going on over there? It's the sports science bit. Yeah. I'll have me some of that, So over I trot, and I get myself into a BTEC national diploma in sports science, which is a 2-year course. By this stage, I've rehabbed the knee back. I'm now playing for the college football team. I then get picked up to play for the British college team, so the whole of the British colleges, England team. So I'm getting back on track with the football, sort of thinking this might be back on. I'm getting interest from other clubs. And then I got offered a full paid scholarship to go to America. So it was a 3-year fully paid soccer scholarship to go and play out there. So that was exciting for me. It was let's get out of here. Let's get out of this environment. There's more to life than this town. And I want to explore, what's out there. So for me, that was amazing. I had everything booked, my flight, all this sort of stuff. Long story, hopefully not long. I filled in a load of amateur eligibility forms incorrectly, so they deemed me to be a professional in their amateur league, which then halted the application process for 12 months. Now I'm fucking 18. I'm like, I can't wait a year. At that age, you just want to get going. So then I'd also started thinking, while all this was going on, looking at, the Iraq war was kicking off. So, around that time, 2003 and stuff, I was like looking at Iraq was all over the news, and the Royal Marines was spiking my interest, and the military. Nobody from my family had joined the military before, so it wasn't like it was an avenue that was like preconditioned or was forced upon me. It was something that just interested me. It looked hard, it looked challenging. It's something that I thought I should be doing as part of being British and wanting to help. So that seed was planted. So when the football stuff didn't work out, and at this stage I've got a part-time job while I'm in college. I'm working as a lifeguard, but I've now just completed my personal training course. I'm working at a local council-run gym, and it's that monotony. It was great, good for me personally, selfishly for training. But again, it was something, it just cemented my decision. Is this what I want to do? Do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And I then started reading books like Andy McNabb books and all this kind of stuff, and, Bruce Lee. And I started daydreaming. I started dreaming of bigger things and opportunity and what that would look like and how that would shape who I am and my future, I guess. So from that point, I actually then started looking in more detail as to what that would look like in terms of joining the military. So I went down to the Armed Forces Careers Office in Nottingham, and fortunately for me at the time, the guy that was sat behind the desk was a Royal Marine. He had his green beret on, quite a big, imposing character. I walk in, I said, look, if I'm going to join the military, I want to join the hardest things. What's the hardest infantry course I can join? And he sort of said, look, it's the Marines. You've also got the paras, arguably. So, for people that don't know, for context, in the British military, probably the hardest infantry courses you can do, it's the Marines or the paras, The Marines is the longest, it was at the time, 32 weeks basic training. And the paras is very similar as well. So I went down the Marines route. So I started doing all the medical tests, all the physical tests, and the induction stuff. And before I know it, mate, I'm on a fucking train. I'm cruising into Exmouth and the Royal Marines Commando Training Centre in Lympstone. I'm stepping off the train, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, suitcase in hand, fucking oversized suit on, and getting screamed and shouted at for an induction course, a 5-day pre-selection or pre-joining course to join the Royal Marines. We got beasted around for 5 days, crawling, fireman's carries, climbing rope, doing all the stuff, getting filthy, dirty, running around, and I fucking loved it. And I was like, yes, I fucking love this. You know, I had some clear benefits from my base level of fitness from football, playing at a high level of football. Physically, I was in a good place. You know, obviously it was tiring, it was hard, but I felt good. But for me, it was more what the Royal Marines stood for in terms of their values, their core ethos, and, you know, unity and loyalty and respect and trusting each other and cheerfulness in the face of adversity. All these mantras that were on the wall everywhere that really cemented who I wanted to be as a character. And I could see the camaraderie and the tightness and the bond, that brotherhood, that I guess, you can only get from specialist places like that. And I knew that you couldn't buy yourself into this club. You had to earn that green beret. And the only way to do that was to start on day one and finish at week 32, and then you could be awarded, you know, the coveted green beret at the end.
And when you do those 32 weeks that you're talking about, there's not many people that go straight through, is there, the whole 32 weeks without getting injured or without getting something happen to them?
Yeah, so I guess one of the it's an arduous course. You know, physically, you have to be very robust. And injury is one of those things which is, you know, I don't believe in luck, but there is certainly a little bit of lady luck involved with that. You know, anyone can twist an ankle, twist a sock, you know, pop a shoulder. And because you're carrying heavy loads, and look, it's built up over time, you know, but I think you do need the rub of the green. You need a little bit of luck. But I started on day one and I finished in my troop on week 32, and it's called an original. If you finish as an original, that means that you've gone all the way through without having to be taken out of the training cycle, be rehabilitated, then put back into the cycle with a different troop. You know, so there's, let's say there's 50, 60 people start on day one. There's usually not many originals left.
So if you get injured on week 16 in the Marines, and you've not done anything wrong, but you just got injured, they put you into rehabilitation, then they bring you back in on week 17.
Or the same week.
Yeah. In another troop whenever you're healthy and ready to go again.
Exactly that.
So you don't have to set the whole thing again.
No.
But I suppose it'd be harder for you to come back off rehabilitation and be fit enough to be able to, and in the mental capacity, place enough to be able to go through that.
Well, they're two different things. Physically, you would be in a good place because the part of the rehab process is there. It's very, very professional. So if you're injured, you are with rehabilitation staff. You're then built up. It's called, I think, Hunter Troop. It was called at the time. It may be different now. And you would be rehabilitated and physically rehabilitated to the same level in which you exited. So you have to do all these tests that make sure that you are physically ready to be inserted back into week 16. The mental aspect is a whole different thing. It's horrible to see, you know, and I didn't have that. You know, it didn't happen to me, fortunately, but it does affect a lot of people. You get pulled out, you know, and all these guys, it's 16 weeks, doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're eating, sleeping, shitting, everything together as a group and a body of men for 16 weeks, they're your muckers, they're your friends, and that train continues, and you have to get off, and you're fucking waving to them like, oh, wish you all the best. And, you know, you might come in, it might only be 2 weeks. It might be 6 months, you know, it depends on the severity of your injury. So these people could be passing out at week 32 with their green berets, and you'd probably go and look at that and hopefully have some inspiration from that. But at the same time, that must be a bitter pill to swallow. Bittersweet.
And I suppose some of these guys that you're meeting and you're in the Marines with, and you're going through this training with, you're becoming like brothers. They're people that have lasted the test of time. You still know them now, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's, you know, you build a good bond there. But I think for me, when you finish at week 32, you know, we're condensing a long period of time there. You know, you go from Staz civilian, you know, and you finish a different person. You know, you've learnt so much about yourself and what your body, but more importantly, what your mind is capable of. You know, so you feel an immense sense of pride when you finish. You feel like you've achieved something that is difficult. That is fucking hard to achieve. To get a green beret is hard. It is difficult. So you do feel immense level of pride and satisfaction in yourself, but also you're happy for that group as well. From there, you then go and get distributed into your respective units. So there's different units around the UK geographically where they're based. And I went to 40 Commando based in Taunton. I went straight into Bravo Company. Oddly enough, with Louis, the other co-founder of ThruDark, that's where I met Louis. Ant Middleton was in that. Some other people that have actually a lot of that troop actually went on to do special forces selection. So I was in a good troop. I immediately got deployed on my first operational tour to Afghanistan. So, from going to the end of 32 weeks, I'm a changed person. I've got my Green Beret. I joined, my commando unit, my company, and within about 3 months, before I knew it, I was in Kabul, Afghanistan's capital, and learning from the offset, steep learning curve.
I imagine that when you go from this training, obviously the Marines is hard training, there's no doubt about that, but when you get into a war zone, that's a completely different animal to be involved with, isn't it?
It is.
You kind of must feel, even though you're well trained anyway, but you get off there, you must feel like you're not even been trained at all.
Yeah, and I've never had a professional fight, but I probably liken it something to that. Imagine you're training. I'm talking from, let's say, boxing as an example, and you're sparring. Now it's ring walk time, and you walk out, the bright lights, the crowd, the adrenaline, the anxiety, all those feelings that you're dealing with, and the next thing you're getting punched in the face. And for some people, that's difficult, and you have to understand that it's a difficult and different, challenging, mentally stimulated environment. It is. You can't prepare for that. You can't prepare for, a story. First example for me is going out on patrol. One of the first time I went out on a patrol, I'm talking outside of the gate. Looking back now, the equipment and the vehicles were very different to they are now. The enemy obviously adapted and changed in terms of its tactics and procedures and IEDs, improvised explosive devices, which, most people have probably heard or seen. At the time, they were there, but not as prevalent. So we roll out in soft skin vehicles. We're hanging out the top of what is like a Land Rover Defender, the old school ones with the tops off. There's a couple of lads in the back. We've got weapons. One driver, one commander, was 4 or 5 vehicles, and we're doing our routine patrol stuff. And the first time I kind of experienced any type of warfare was, coming under small contact and an IED explosion. It was not one of our vehicles, a different vehicle. It hit a civilian vehicle. And an RPG went off, and the chaos. The absolute chaos that ensued, and you think you're trained to deal with this stuff, but you're really not. You're consumed and overwhelmed by a sensory overload of information, and that's probably the one way I can describe it, of just what the fuck is going on. And most people have experienced that probably in life, whether it's a car crash or something happens, a big fight, it's that fight, flight or freeze scenario, and the different conditions that your brain goes through, from white to yellow to orange to red, and how those different conditions affect you physiologically, and psychologically. What am I doing? But you're trained, your training kicks in, you do all this stuff, and it's a surreal environment, and this fucking explosion went off, and we're doing our thing, we're doing our drills that we've been taught, and setting perimeters, and we're making sure everybody's safe. And I just remember being in a position, like a fire position, looking out and, looking for the enemy, and a fucking dog running over to me. It fucking comes over, it's daytime, and I'm thinking, fuck off, that fucking dog's coming in. And I'm like, what the fuck is that in its mouth? And it just drops a guy's penis next to us. Me and another guy, and we're like, what? Is that a fucking penis? Yeah, it's just, and then the dog fucking tails waggling, and it just runs off, and it was just like, what the fuck is going on? It's just that, how do you prepare for that? And then next thing it's bullets overhead, and you're back in the cars, and you're back in, and that's your induction. That's your first firefight. And from the outside looking in, I always look at visualization is a big thing for me. How do I want to act when something happens? And you all run this through in your mind, and you've probably done it from a basic level of, in a fight, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to posture like this, and this is how I will react, and this is how I will communicate, and I'm going to be ready. And you then get in a fight, and it's just tunnel vision. Yeah. And it's, what the fuck happened to Frankie? And you play everything back, and shit, it was a lot different. like I reacted a lot different to what I thought I would, and it's not like fucking Hollywood, you know. It's not. We see these Hollywood films, and it gives a distorted view on reality of warfare.
Even when I've been on like nights out with you, you know, in Portugal and stuff, it's like you've never switched off from the mentality that everyone comes home. Do you know what I mean? Like you're always thinking like, what, you know, where's is Frankie all right? Is Dean all right? And there's always that going on. So I imagine that comes from this environment, you know, that you've had to make sure that your troop comes home when you're in control of a troop and all this kind of stuff. Does that naturally come into civilian life as well?
Yeah, I think obviously that bleeds across clearly into civilian life, and there's mannerisms that are attached to that. But I think one of the biggest things that the military gave me was a very unique perspective on life and situations. You know, definitely numbed me to certain scenarios and situations that I've been with places with, you know, my wife Ruby, and things happen, a fight or a car crash or something that ordinarily people sort of scream and you know, we have that reaction, that natural. It's like what's the film Snatch? You know, when everyone pulls that stupid face, but Brad Pitt's looking fucking cool and collected because you're used to these other senses coming in, and your brain is conditioned to it. And it's kind of, yeah, it's cool. And then it gets to a point where then there's a reaction that you need to take, whether that's, but I've already thought these things through. I'm in a place, where's my exits? You know, who's here? Who are the threats? Who are the non-threats? Who are the people that are going to fight? Who are the people that are going to flight? Who's going to fucking freeze? Who's going to be useful to me? What can I use in my environment right now that would help me? Be that a barricade, or what am I carrying personally? You know, who's with me? What are the priorities? Whether that's my kids, whether it's my wife, whether it's all, you know, and how quickly can I get out of this situation? Because clearly that's what you want to happen and the last thing you want to be doing is getting pulled and drawn into a situation that you don't need to be pulled into. But yeah, that definitely bleeds across from military and everything that you're conditioned to.
Oh, I really want to dive into what you just said there previously about visualization as well.
Yeah.
Because you said that you've visualized things your entire life, and obviously you've learned different skills of enhancing your visualization, and obviously you've created this phenomenal business on the back of probably visualization as well. So can you give me like a bit of a guide to how you visualize stuff and how you bring that into your reality?
Yeah. I actually didn't realize I was doing this for quite some time. It's not until you get a little bit older and you become a little bit more introspective and you try to understand and analyze why and how you do things, you know. And it wasn't until I started going through that process and sort of thinking to myself, how do I get from A to B? And whether that's training, whether that's business, whether that's, you know, jiu-jitsu or something, everything for me begins and ends with visualization. And that's me putting myself in a situation. There's an example. I did this when I was playing football as a kid. You know, you're playing at high level. You know, how do I deal with what's about to happen? I would always be thinking about outcomes. I would visualize myself in that position, playing the game in my next game, my position, how I wanted to control myself, how I would react with the ball under pressure, if we were winning, if we were losing. And generally speaking, 95% of my visualization was positive. It was always seeing myself doing good for the right reasons. It was always, I'd get the ball, control, and my head would be up. I would be looking for options and passes. If not, I would be moving forward into space. I would be picking out the correct passes. I'd be tackling hard. I'd be winning all the headers. I'd visualize that over and over and over again. So when I was playing football, it was always a positive visualization for me. It was never a, oh shit, what if I fumble the ball? And you have that, but I would very quickly eradicate that from my mindset. You know, so when it came to the Marines, I would visualize what I thought a Royal Marine would do in a situation. I wouldn't visualize myself as Staz the recruit. I would visualize myself as Staz the Marine with my green beret on, acting as a soldier, you know, a professional soldier. How would I carry myself? How would I hold my weapon? How would my kit be configured? You know, mentally, when things are tough and I would be physically drained, how would I want myself to look to the outside world? How would I want to be perceived? And how would that make me feel as a person? You know, and I think that helps. If you know, there's times where, you know, there's lots of examples I can give you in Marines training, for example, when you know, times are difficult, very hard physically. And you can even lean into that difficulty and that adversity and gain from that and see yourself coming out the other end, going through the fire, through the hardship with a smile, a wry smile on your face, and getting to the other end and just almost having that sense of, I can do this. And I know I can do it because I've visualized myself doing it. And I did that a lot through football, through Marines, and then later on when I went on to Special Forces selection, and then now into business as well.
And you've noticed all the way through your life that everything that you've intensely visualized in that manner, where you've just literally sat down and you've just thought of this and you've run that pattern everywhere that you've done that in your life, has most of these things come true in your reality?
Not all, but for the most part, yes. And for me, it's mainly about how I would want to deal with certain situations. You know, what's the best outcome in a situation that I can specifically look at myself as an individual. Things that are outside of my control, I don't fucking worry about. I can't control that. So what can I control? How can I think positively about what's within my control? And how can I look for the best outcome in all those situations and environments? And that's difficult. That comes with time. It's a constant training mechanism, I think, for your own brain internally. You know, for me, a lot of the times it's not, you know, what I'm saying to myself, you know, it's how I'm saying it. You know, that's important. How am I talking to myself day to day? And listen, every day's not an A, is it? You know, some days that you're a B, some days you're a C, and, you know, some days you feel shit. But you have to just understand and recognize that. What am I 90% of the time? I'm an A. I think and I talk to myself like I'm an A. But there's days where things get on top, you know, and there's external factors that now do start affecting you, you know, but creating that force field, that bubble around yourself really helps me to manage my own thoughts in my mind. You know, I control my mind. One of the biggest things I learned in the Marines, in Special Forces training, was that you can break me physically, but you cannot break me mentally. I control my mind. I control how I think and how I react in every situation that you can put me in.
Is every training method that they use in order to help you control your mind, is that all done through physicality first? So they have to like break you physically and then teach you how to use your mind when you're in that low physical state?
Yeah, it's a combination of both, but in its purest, singlest, most easiest to understand form, it's physical, you know. How you react right now, if we went and did a workout and you feel great, you know, you're taking your pre-workout and you've had your shakes, you feel great.
I'm off caffeine, Staz.
I know, I've seen it. You're trying to offload it to me.
Yeah.
If you feel great when you're doing something, and you know, we all like to train when we feel good. You know, that obviously, you know, a lot of people are training to be better mentally and physically, and you've maybe got a training program, and you select when that is. You know, you're well rested, you're well fed, mentally you're in a good place. You go, I'm going to go to the gym, and you say to yourself, I'm going to train and I feel great. And, you know, you're controlling that. You're controlling the environment that you're putting yourself in. If I said to you, Frankie, we're going to go away for 3 days, the first thing you're going to say is, what are we doing? And then 2, what do I need? You know, if you don't know something and it's unknown to you in your brain, then you start fucking worrying. You start going, well, what am I doing? Is it physical? Am I going to... And this is what the military do really well, is they take you out of an environment that you're comfortable in, they physically break you, you know, so you're fatigued, physically drained, and then they layer it with no sleep, and then they layer it with no food, and then they layer it with complex tasks, and then they expect all of this to come together, and then at the end of that, they'll look at who you are as a person. Because I don't want to know. We all know who Frankie Lee is right now. He's a fun guy. I'm a fun guy. I'm a great guy. If I induced all of those stages to you over...
Who do I turn into?
Who do you turn into? That's the real you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, there's that Japanese thing, isn't it, about, which I find fascinating, about 3 masks. We all have 3 masks. You know, we have the one mask that we wear every fucking day. We're both wearing our mask now. And it's the mask that we want to present to the world. It's the mask that we love, that we like other people to see. You know, that's our mask that we go out with, and it's this guy, and this is who I am. I'm Staz, look at me, I'm this, I'm that, and that's my mask, that it's like the first layer. That's me. The second mask, once you remove that mask, is the mask that is probably more of a true reflection of who you are. That is that you only really reveal to your close friends, your family, the people that really know you. They understand you deeply. They've been around you for years, and they've seen you in these different environments. They know how you react. They know who you are as a person. And then the third mask, if you remove the second mask, is actually you. That's who you fucking are. That's the person that you are when all the lights are off, when nobody's around, when you're fucking sat at home and you're eating fucking Cheerios out of a dog bowl, cursing yourself mentally and struggling and dealing with life and the ugly self, the true reflection of who you are as a person. All those dark things that you do, that you think, and we're all guilty of it, you know, but it's at times nobody sees that, you know, only you get to see that person. It's that person, you know, it's that beautiful quote about the man in the mirror, you know, and having that reflection. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and understand who you are as a person and deal with that. Deal with who you actually are as a person, because it's easy. We can all put the masks back on, but it's that first mask that you really have to understand deeply and develop, and it takes fucking hard time and investment.
Do you think then that looking inward is probably the best thing that people can do now, because everyone's going to the external world to look for validation, to look for likes and dopamine hits and success and external stuff? Everything's external, but looking within is kind of what you're saying is where you kind of find out who the fuck you are.
Yeah, listen, I'm not, I kind of sound like I'm fucking some kind of monk, and I'm not, you know. I think the quicker that you can realize that you are in control of everything, you know, your life, your destiny, how you treat people, how you react to certain situations, how you talk to yourself physically, you know, every day, what are you saying to yourself? You know, what does it sound like? And that's really fucking important, how you communicate with yourself. And we all beat ourselves up, you know, we all, and rightly so, we should always have that growth mindset. We should always be looking at ourselves and questioning what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then how we're communicating that internally to ourselves. It's something crazy, isn't it? Your brain can do something, 4,000 thoughts in a minute, or something mad. You know, we're a complex, very complex mechanism, aren't we? Look at us, look at how we're made up. It's beautiful, but at the same time, it can be quite tragic, you know. And if we look to your point about external validation and the world that we currently live in through social media and this false glass of fucking bullshit that people are being pulled into, and kids, and, you know, I need to be this, I need to look like that, and, you know, what if I don't get accepted because I'm not right, I'm not wearing the right fucking shoes, I'm not drinking the right fucking drink. It is a minefield. You know, so for me, as long as you can be at one with yourself without sounding too Gandhi and being happy, that, you know, I think for me that's key. That's key to happiness, stillness, being, you know, aware that you can control that, you know. But it's difficult, mate. We all want to be at, look, the Chimp Paradox, you know, we've probably read the Chimp Paradox, a fantastic book, you know, from Professor Steve Peters. That book allowed me to understand more about myself than probably anything I'd read or heard before, you know, to deeply understand that there are parts to our brain which we can't control, that chimp brain that is there, and it's inbuilt with us, and those layers are imparted into you by external factors, your upbringing, it's the nature-nurture thing. There's a lot of things that are preset. Once they're set in your brain, they're set. You know, and that's the chimp, you know, the fucking flashing at the road users and being unhappy and, you know, wanting to curse and reacting, you know, not in the correct manner to people, you know, being aggressive and, you know, all those kind of things, but understanding it, allowing it to have its voice, but being aware. I think awareness is the main key here for me. Being aware that it's happening, allow it to do its thing, then rein it back in. Now you're back into, you know, the computer and the other brain as well, allowing you to really understand yourself.
And I think the key piece there is having the awareness to be able to find the peace. Because if you don't have the awareness to that mind going and that constant movement, you're kind of never going to find the peace that you want to find. But I just want to go into, obviously you moved then into the special forces, because I want to touch on this because this is where I think a lot of this came from the Marines, but I think a lot of your insights there are even more in depth to the special forces side of things, because obviously you see the special forces moving around the camp as far as I'm aware, and you think these guys look cool, I'd love to do that, and then you started to go on the pursuit of, okay, how do I get into the SAS, the SBS, how do I become one of these if I'm going to be in the Marines, I want to be one of the most elite that I can be. That's kind of your mindset right now, yeah?
Yeah, that's correct. So to your original point there, the Marines set me up for success. You know, it really did set me up for success in terms of the military. And I loved the military. I'd found my calling and everything like that. It was great for me as a person, as an individual. When you're in the Marines, you know about special forces. It's kind of shrouded in mystery and everything else. You don't really see or feel the special forces. They're their own unit, their own entity. They're out doing all the stuff that nobody knows about. The first time that I physically saw them, I was on the main gate in Kabul, Afghanistan, allowing cars to egress out of the camp. And enrolled these two civilian vehicles. They put the Union Jack on the front, and they step out. It's a checkpoint before they're allowed into the camp. And I'm on the gate, and I'm like, who the fuck are these dudes? Out jump 8 of these guys, which I now know to be SBS operators. You know, they've got wearing, to give context, wearing military clothing, and weapons, all that kind of stuff, and berets. These guys jump out. They're in jeans, approach shoes, flannel shirts, baseball caps, long hair, beards, different like plate carriers, chest rigs, different weapon systems, different communication systems. And to your point, they just looked fucking cool. They looked like the rock stars. And I remember looking at the guy that I was with, like, who the fuck are these badasses, And he was like, it's the SBS, it's the Special Forces guys. And that really kind of planted the seed for me, and it intrigued me. And I thought, I want to be that. I want to see myself in their shoes and doing that job and being those people. I didn't know necessarily what they did, but it intrigued me, and I was curious, and I always wanted to push myself. I'd always wanted to be the best at anything that I was doing. The Marines was that, and then within the Marines, I did my sniper course. The sniper course is arguably the hardest infantry course that you can do when you're in the Marines. I was looking, I was always scratching. I'd got my Green Beret, and what's next? Right, go do the sniper course. It's fucking hard. If you pass that, you are then at another level within the Marines in terms of infantry skills and being at the top of your game. Being a sniper, it's a prestigious role and position to have within the Marines. So I did that as a sort of a precursor of me going on selection. So then I started really looking into selection in terms of, right, let's have a look at let's break this down in terms of, and for me, I've always kind of done that. I've never looked, you have to look at the whole. You look at, what is month 0 to, week 32 at the end in terms of the Marines. But I never really did that. I always just broke everything down. And sometimes it would be week by week. Some days it's day by day. And when it's a fucking stinker of a day, you're hour by hour and then minute by minute, depending.
So you reverse engineer everything?
Reverse engineered it. So what does it look like to be Special Forces? What do I need to do? How long is the course? Okay, the course is that long. It's now broken down into 4 parts. Okay, what's the first part? Okay, the hills. What do I need to do the hills? Right, I need to be physically fit and robust to navigate effectively and efficiently by myself over the Welsh mountains, carrying a heavy load, and be competent in my abilities to navigate and to look after myself in that environment. Right, put myself in that environment and start training for that. And break each day down. I then go on selection. I'm in selection. I'm on the course. There's 240 people. And I'm concentrating on me. It's hard not to look left and right. We all look left and right, and we're all comparing ourselves. That's natural, and so there's some absolute units on these courses. I'm talking big, 16, 18 stone Adonis of men that you're looking around and thinking, fuck, this guy looks the part. He looks like a Hollywood. He looks like Drago or something. You're thinking this guy looks the part. He's confident, and he's had more experience with me in the Marines. And I'd only been in the Marines for 3 years. I'd had an operational tour. I'd done the sniper course, so I'd set myself up. But that's relatively a small amount of experience and time within the Marines before you join selection. So I do selection. I go through the hills phase, and I'm physically very fit. I can move well, I can carry heavy loads well, so the hills phase for me was I'm not going to say it's fucking enjoyable, because there's some times there where I was questioning what the fuck I was doing, but it's also important to understand that it's a voluntary course. You volunteer to go on that course. You're putting yourself in that situation. So, and to caveat that, you can exit stage left anytime. You can go, the fuck, well, this isn't for me, and people do that in different ways. Some people do just break physically and mentally and say, do you know what, this is harder physically and mentally than anything I was prepared for. So I'm going to pull myself, you voluntary withdrawal from the course. Another way out is injury. So if you do, people are always rolling ankles, snapping legs, all that sort of stuff, just because of the sheer weight that you're carrying on your pack. And other people have a J1 issue where something's not right at home, or they've been offered a different course, and if they've going onto that course without a clear mind, i.e. something's happening at home, and the kids aren't well, there's some distraction external to that course, then that will feed, and then they'll probably eventually pull themselves off. Pull themselves off, that sounds good, doesn't it? Fuck's sake. So I went through the hills phase. At the end of the hills phase, there's a test week. There's certain things that you have to do over certain distances, carrying a certain load in the times. There's certain parameters that you have to make. And if you don't make them, then you can be told that you aren't good enough, basically. So that's the next out, is you're there, you still want to be there, you're trying, but Johnny's best isn't good enough, sort of sketch. So I went into test week, completed test week, and then you move into, so you're feeling quite good, like physically. You're thinking, after 4 or 5 weeks here on the hills, and I'm mixing it, I'm up near the front, I'm feeling strong. It's killed off. It's cooled a lot of people. The 240 people now. There's maybe 160. So it's killed a lot of these people off, and all these people that turn up, the majority are Marines and Paras. They're strong, fit boys. They're not dross. So that makes you feel a bit better. It's like Highlander, the old, you take the heads off, and in the end there can only be one. You feel that kind of that energy, that kind of positive reinforcement that, you know what, I'm in the right place, I'm doing okay here. And then you go to the jungle. So the first phase tests you physically, in terms of, can you move with weight very quickly over these periods, and look after yourself, administrate yourself, and be there at the end. The jungle is completely fucking different.
Are we talking Brunei, or where are we talking?
It doesn't matter where it is. It's leaves and trees and jungle. So you insert into the jungle. You have a week before you go into the jungle. In the location, you're getting beasted up and down the beaches. They call it acclimatization. It's a beasting up and down. Some people pull out of that phase. The heat, the humidity just absolutely destroys some of the bigger guys, the fair-haired guys. You then sort your kit out. You helicopter in. It's like a scene out of Predator. They all going in the choppers, and it's just green everywhere. You get flown in, you dropped in, and then that's you for 4 weeks with all the kit and equipment that you have to last and sustain yourself for 4 weeks if you pass. And the jungle is very unique in terms of environment. It's a very, very difficult environment to soldier in, and that's now what they're looking at. You're in a 4-man patrol. You've got one DS, directing staff, with you all the time, watching, listening, living and breathing with you in the jungle to see how you can operate as a special forces guy within a small 4-man operating team. So it's different now. Clearly, you still need the physical aspect, because physically it is fucking draining. It is a disgusting environment to walk in, to operate, and to move in. It just saps your very soul from your body. It's physically very, very difficult. But what they're looking for is, can you do the basic drills to a very high standard? And that's special forces through and through. It's nothing Gucci that you think, wow, Hollywood. It's, can you do what we tell you to do to a very high standard consistently, and keep doing it day in, day out, and deal with that monotony, and still remain on point when you are physically and mentally exhausted. And how do you react with your team? It's that layer thing. They add these layers of complexity on, from sleep to food to complex tasks, and then they mix it all together, and then you start to see the masks start coming off, and you start to see who people really are. And that's what they're looking for. When you're absolutely fucked, can you do the basics well? And also, do you work well with others? Do you play well with others? Because that happens. Because I thought selection was hard. At the time, it was the most difficult thing I'd ever done. And then I went out on operations with the SBS. And then you make the link, like, fuck, shit, now I get it. Now I fucking get it. And then you go from the jungle. If you're successful, you pass the jungle. Then you go into resistance to interrogation, which you've probably seen on the TV shows, the white noise, baby screams, being professionally interrogated by people. that was probably one of the biggest kick in the balls for me along selection, just because it's not spoken about. You don't understand the process. Before you go into the resistance to interrogation, you're on the run for about 5 days. You know,
So you're knackered.
That's the most tired I've ever been. And compounded with 4 weeks of running around hills, 5 weeks of jungle, now on the run for 5 days. You then get snatched at the end of that 5 days and you're into 36 hours of intense interrogation.
So when they say interrogation, you're talking about waterboarding and all that stuff as well?
There's all sorts of methods and things that they use, which I won't really go into the detail, but it's difficult. Very, very, very mentally, that was the biggest mental challenge for me on selection, was being in my own head for 36 hours when I was absolutely fucking chin strapped at the lowest ebb. You know, you're hanging on by a fucking thread, and you have to own your mind. You know, you're hooded, noises, you know, for the most part, stress positions, and then you're pulled out and you're into an interrogation. You then have to play the part of what you're doing and why you're there, you know, and not break down physically or mentally. And then you're back in again, and this happens for 36 hours. At the end of that, if you're successful, you then go on to the weapons and tactics phase of training. Now we've got this person that's physically robust, works well with others, can do the basics well to a high standard, is safe in that environment. He's also can act and react well under pressure in terms of resistance to interrogation. Now let's see if you can do all the things that we're asking you to do from a weapons and tactics and standard operating procedures point of view. You know, it's the gas masks on, the entry stuff, the demolitions, the abseiling, the running around the ranges, the shooting, and they're always just layering, complex tasks and issues, new kit, new equipment, new weapon systems. Learn it, go and shows that you know what we've just taught you, and put it to practice to a very high standard.
Is business now easier because, well, it must be a hell of a lot easier now because you can literally say, well, do you know what? I've been to a hell of a lot harder places and a hell of a lot harder things than I'm doing here. So surely business for you has become easy, has it?
Not at all, mate. No. Fuck, it is a complex, you know, nuanced, difficult environment to operate and navigate because, you know, I pass selection, you know, and I then join a squadron, and it's fucking snakes and ladders, back to the bottom again. You know, I'm badged, I'm special forces, and it's like, fucking no, you're not, mate. You know, now you learn. The next 10 years for me within special forces was learning, and it was doing. It was now put all this stuff into practice operationally, and that was some of the best times of my life, you know, but the most challenging times of my life as well. It really developed and shaped the person that I am today, and I'm forever thankful for the people that I met, the opportunities that I was given, from training to traveling to, you know, I'm condensing 10 years of the most formative part of my life within special forces and operational tours and everything that went on, you know, from the good, the bad, the ugly, and the brilliant, you know.
What was one of the hardest missions that you've ever been on?
What, hard as in physically or hard?
Hard as in physically and mentally, because obviously you have to see. It's not just about what your physical body sees; it's about what your eyes and your mind experiences on the journey as well. Because obviously, like you have to lose people in that field. You have to, you know, you lose people. Things happen. What? Give me an example.
I could give you a million examples, mate. But I think,
what's the one that sticks out in your mind? Yeah.
Well, you know, there's some jobs or operations go well, very well, and others don't, you know, and we always plan for the best and prepare for the worst. I think special forces are very unique in terms of what they can deliver operationally for the government. You know, we are very unique at what we can do in terms of how we are skilled. You know, when I was an assaulter, a knuckle dragger, a door kicker, whatever you want to say it is, you know, first and foremost, I'm a guy in the stack that can run, clear, do room entry, you know, and, you know, there's a bad guy over here, let's go get him. It's a high value target. You know, it's of strategic importance that we do this, you know, because it has other downstream effect to wider operational military movement across the battlefield. So you know you're doing a good job, you're doing it for the right reasons, and it's high value. We always like to stack the odds in our favour. You know, we have lots of things that we can use at our disposal from technology and other bits and pieces that will always allow us to have the upper hand on our enemy. And jobs generally went very well. You know, we had, Afghanistan when I joined, it was a very kinetic time. It was rock star. It was everything you'd expect it to be within the military and special forces. It was like a Call of Duty game. But things don't always go well. And there's operations and jobs where people are shot, your friends are injured, and that very, very quickly changes what the mission output is and what's the primary objective, because are we okay now to let this high value target go to essentially look after one of our own? Absolutely. Or maybe not. And that depends on who, what, where, why, and higher up strategic input. But, there's times where we've lost, obviously lost guys. I've had helicopters blown out of the sky. I've been blown up in vehicles. I've had Pulp Fiction style stupid moments that you just have to laugh and go, fuck, that was close, but you love it. You're there for a reason. That adrenaline, there's no other feeling like that in life. What is it? Who's the guy who said there's no feeling in life like the hunting of man? And those that have experienced that will never feel anything close that can ever resemble that. But there's good, there's bad. But look, I signed up for that. I know what I was getting signed up for. There's been moments where I've thought, fuck, this is it. It's my time. And you have a moment of just accepting that. Acceptance of just, that's it, if we go, if it ends now, and am I happy? Yes. Have I pushed myself? Yes. Am I happy with the type of person that I am and what I've achieved? Yes. And you kind of release yourself to that moment. It sounds quite dark, but it's not. It's just an acceptance of understanding that you are in that position, and it can happen. It does happen. I've seen it happen. So rather than go into each specific details of operations and the specific details, it's probably sort of best just to kind of encapsulate that as probably terribly, but as best I can.
Because obviously war isn't glamorous.
No, and I think again this it comes back down to you only know what you know. Like I oftentimes think, and this is that perspective thing, I would love that ability to transform you into me, into a position or an action or a mission that I was doing. If we could transport you into my body in that moment, at that time, to know, so what you could feel and experience what that feels like. Because I can't explain it. I can't explain it. You can't. I can say to you, the feeling, the gut-wrenching, fear and anxiety and, trying to battle that positive visualization in your mind. Every job that I went out on, I would be visualizing how I would act, how I would move, what would happen if this happened, and how would I react if I got shot? What type of person do I want to be if I get shot? How do I want to react? You go through all this kind of stuff, and how does it look? And
have you ever been shot?
No.
Just close calls.
Yeah, some mad Pulp Fiction moments. I've been blown up in vehicles, which was pretty bad, and other stuff like that. But and had real close calls, and
daisy chain IEDs and all that. I've heard you talk about in the past, and how that took out half your troop, and all that kind of stuff. And there was one scenario that I've seen you talk about before, but it's quite interesting. Was how you reacted to it. Was you were on the side of a hill, and you thought you'd cleared all the enemy, and you get up and the helicopter above you shines a light on somewhere where there was an enemy, and then all of a sudden a grenade comes over. And it's like you and this other mate, you throwing grenades at each other, and it's all like a bit chaos. Yeah,
chaos. Comedy chaos looking back now, but at the time I was in a really shit position. I was on a forward-facing slope, so I'm at the bottom. Well, I'm near the top of the slope, but it's forward facing, so I'm in a really exposed position. They're behind hard cover, behind rocks. There's 3 people there. The guys that were after, we'd called in a 500-pound bomb. The battle damage assessment was that they were all killed. As I'm closing in on the position to check. As I'm closing in to check the position, that's when I'm notified above me, look, there's movement to your front. So obviously I hit the fucking deck, sort of on the communication saying, give me a readout, what is it? How many people? And while this is going on, I then get the grenade over, which lands about 5 feet from my head. I'm now trying to dig a hole with my chin, just bracing for impact. That goes off, and I'm now crawling up towards the position. I'm firing my gun into the position to try and keep the heads down. Now I'm fumbling around trying to get my grenades out and pulling pins. I'm throwing grenades back, and I'm crawling up the hill, trying to get into a better position because I know I'm exposed, and it's a shit position to be in. And as I get closer and closer, there's now some fire support coming in from another team to my right to try and keep their heads down and suppress them while I can get into a position where I can assault the position. And from there, I just remember having that feeling of anger, of just, I can't fucking believe I'm in this position, but I have to do something about it. I can't just sit out here, just dangling with my legs dangling in the wind. I have to do something positive to make this situation better. So then I moved forward and assaulted the position with the guys in there, and obviously had to deal with that threat. But
you had to deal with all three.
Yes. Crazy
position to be in, isn't it? When you think about it. And then obviously they take you out of the situation, pick you up on the helicopter, and you're out there the situation again. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
We'll keep
a bit more complex, but yeah.
We'll keep it Hollywood, but. So obviously all this and all that stuff, I mean, we can't make, like I said before, we can't make war sound glamorous because it's clearly not, and you've clearly been through a lot of stuff, but the most powerful thing I've learned of you today that I'd never even considered is how powerful the visualization, the mindset, the getting, the mental rehearsing and how to use that in your everyday life. I think you've given a real good things, but how have you applied? So in ThruDark's position, obviously you come out of the special forces now. You retire and you're looking around for something to do. How did you apply the mindset that you had in order to find the next thing that was right for you to do and do ThruDark?
I got excited with the stories. I didn't really answer your question, so you come around really nicely. I think before that, I'll give the context of I'm now approaching the end of my career. I finished, I had a really fantastic, decorated career. It was the best job in the world for me. It was everything I ever wanted to do and be. I had an amazing time and experience from that. I've gained so much, but it was also probably, for me, it was the best job in the world, but also the most selfish job in the world, and it took its toll on my first marriage and everything else. And I'd now met my now wife, Ruby, and it was towards the end of my career. I was now the chief sniper instructor for the unit, and I was moving further and further, probably away from the pointy end. I was 13 years into my military career, 10 within special forces. And I made the conscious decision to leave on a high. For me, that was the right decision to make. It was, what do I want to do? What does that look like? And we were actually parachuting out in California with the squadron. Louis was there as well. So we're jumping out, doing all the practice stuff, and a beautiful place. It was in the middle of nowhere, but we were talking about what life could look like on the outside. And unfortunately, Louis, the other co-founder, was being medically discharged. He had some injuries, and I think that's a common trait amongst most people from the military in general, but also special forces. Your hips, your knees, your back, everything just kind of. I think you condense 10 years probably worth of 40 years of the average person in terms of what you're asking your body to do, and probably mentally as well. So we wanted to leave, and we started looking at different options. Naturally, I think from a skill set point of view, our skills would transfer really naturally into close protection, high paid security jobs, and we did a bit of that. When we were leaving, we were talking about clothing and kit and equipment and how important it is to the operator. And that's everything from a weapon system, night vision goggles, plate carriers, and then clothing. We were afforded some of the best kit and equipment in the world, really high-end, top-tier clothing and equipment. But we were still finding fault with the clothing element. So me being a sniper, I was always a kit pest. I was always playing with my own kit and equipment. I was always tinkering it. As an example, on my sniper course, it's conducted down in Exmouth again, and it's just, the training area is covered with gorse bush, and people that know what a gorse bush is will understand you don't want to be crawling around in a fucking gorse bush.
It's a prickly bush, isn't it?
It's the Satan of bushes, I would say. Mind you, yeah. I'll leave that joke.
Don't go. No. I knew where you were going. I knew where you were going to go, and I was like, "Staz, we don't need to do it, right?
Okay,
not today."
So the kit that you were given, you were crawling through these bushes, blah 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 blah. Anyway, you'd always be, for me, making the kit fit for purpose, and that meant cutting off big heavy duty tent and applying it and stitching it to the front of your trousers, to the arse pad, to the elbows as you were crawling through, so you weren't getting smashed so much smashed by the bush. So So I'd always been like that. When I joined Special Forces, you get loads of kit and equipment. You're always fiddling and tinkering, and lads are always in the cages and playing with kit and equipment, making it fit for purpose, and it's quite unique and individual. So we loved that kind of element of it. Me and Louis started talking about like the outdoor space. We loved the outdoors. We loved kind of that aspect of it. And then we started saying, well, what do we wear normally for outdoors, and what's wrong with it? And we were kind of looking at all the other brands and saying, they're kind of fucking boring. They all look the same. And as an analogy, they're kind of, for me, the main brands that are, this is a huge market, the outdoor market. If we look at UK and some elements of US and Europe, those brands are like, they're traveling down the fucking M1, this motorway, and they're generally all driving the same car. They're traveling at the same fucking speed, you know, and you can sort of see where they're heading, generally in the direction. And for me, what did we want ThruDark to do and be? We wanted it to be aspirational, but we also wanted it to bring in elements of our experience. You know, we had credibility, we had authenticity. We'd used clothing in every environment in the world, from snow to desert to jungle, you know, and we knew what the clothing, how the clothing had to perform. We knew what good kit was, we knew what shit kit was. You know, for us, it was right, well, how can we do this? And I think you need naivety before you start any endeavor, business, whatever. You need a level of naivety, and we had that. We kind of thought, well, how hard can it be making some clothing? You know, we know what we want, we know what we like. You know, we just go out and make some clothing. This was sort of back in 2017, 2018. So off we go. We see all this kind of outdoor industry going this way, and we think, fuck it, we'll just get our buggy and we'll just go off road. We'll start heading in the direction of travel generally, but we'll do it our way, and we will do it authentically, incredibly, and we'll keep it, I guess, true and pure to what we know. You know, we are who we are. We are the co-founders, me and Louis. We've got 26 years of combined UK Special Forces experience between us. You know, we've got a hell of a lot of experience operating in cold, up mountains, climbing, diving, you know, every environment we've operated and thrived in. So we have credible, authentic experience. Most brands scratch around trying to find a story nowadays. You know, it's the biggest thing, isn't it? Who are they? What do they stand for? What's their ethos? You know, what are their brand values? And what's their story? Who are they? If it doesn't make sense, it confuses people. We just, at its purest form, wanted to make the best technical outdoor clothing that we could at the time, that also aligned correctly to us as individuals and people, you know, in terms of our brand values. And to sort of navigate back round to your original question, what can we bring to business that has helped, I guess, form ThruDark to what it is today, you know? And you know as well better than anyone, and other people listening and watching will understand just how hard brand building is. And it kind of gets looked at like washed over, brand building or brand, and it's a bit wishy-washy. And what does it mean? Brand for me is everything. It's who you are. It's how you identify, how the people see you from the outside looking in. And that for me was Special Forces. They're a brand, you know. You can look at American Special Forces, UK Special Forces, it's a brand. Look at those people, look how they operate, look how they hold themselves, look how they conduct themselves, you know, and how aspirational that is. For us, we wanted to be that brand that was different. You know, we were naively at the time, but rightly so looking back now, we were carving our own path. We were saying, we know what you guys are doing over here, we know where you're heading, we know the direction of travel, but fuck that, we're doing it this way. And this is what we want it to look like. And I hope that doesn't sound arrogant. For us, it was just true. It was true to what we were and what we wanted to achieve. And how can we do that? You know, mixed in with a load of mess ups and, you know, and at the start, it's no different to any startup. Everybody starts with an idea, you know, and ideas are great, but unless you put pen to paper and action that, it is just that. It's just a fucking idea. So me and Louis we started planning like we would do a military operation. You know, we were in my front room. And we had a whiteboard. We long-term borrow whiteboard from the military. We stuck it up on mine, attached it to the wall, and we were like, right, let's look at this. How would we deal with a complex, operational, high-value target abroad? Okay, we'd look at the bigger picture. Where are we? Who's involved? What's the network? And how can we do the doing? How do we get to mission success in the best possible way? Well, okay, let's look what's in the way right now. And it's basically SWOT analysis. At the hub, who are ThruDark? Who is it? It's me and Louis. It's like, shit, there's 2 of us. Okay, we don't have the resource available that we did when we were in the military. We don't have all these intelligence analysts. We don't have all the helicopters. We don't have the weapons. We don't have the kit. We don't have everybody else to help us. But if we were doing this just me and you, how would we do it? You know, it's that ethos from Special Forces about dealing with complex issues and problems, but really breaking it down to its basic form. So we started looking at ThruDark. Who are we? Let's build our brand values around that. Where do we want to aim for? Where do we want to sit? How are we going to be different? And then how can we showcase that? You know, and how do we achieve mission success? Well, we just work back and we break it down again into those stages. And some days it's day by day. It's emailing, it's communicating, it's speaking to the right people. And people is everything. In Special Forces, you know, where you're kind of known as a force multiplier. When you're an operator, like I spoke about earlier, you're a door kicker. But actually, you're much more than that. You are highly skilled. I was a sniper. I was the demolitions expert as well. So anything that was demolitions and explosive method of entry, you know, you could call in fast air. You were trained medically to a very high standard. You know, you had so many different layers or feathers in your cap, you know, that you could call upon. And now imagine that amongst 30 other operators who are all trained to the very high standard, that have all gone through that course, that all understand their worth. They're adding value at every fucking level. You know, they're force multipliers. So me and Louis were coming in, right, what can we do? We know we're force multipliers, but this world is different. We're not in the fucking military. And one thing I learned when you do leave that world and you attach so much of your identity to who you were as an individual, and that's difficult. We probably both went through that stage of the first 6 months to a year of going, well, I'm Staz, I'm fucking Special Forces, aren't I? And nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. So park that. Forget that element. You can lean into that experience and who you used to be, but the game's changed now. That Monopoly game that you were changing before, you might as well flip it off and fuck it off. Now you've got a fresh board. Now you've got a new objective, a new target, and now you are different people. You need to start again. Snakes and ladders, back to the bottom. All right, where's the ladders? How the fuck can we get to where we want to get to? Who do we need? Who are the force multipliers in our world? You know, and then you get introduced along the way to different people. You know, shout out to Steve Clark, our founding investor, and you know, an incredible guy, very successful, humble guy, keeps himself in the shadows. But I was friends, you know, with Steve, and me and Louis are friends first and foremost. And as we were leaving, we were talking, doing this, planning. We were planning, constantly talking about what this would look like, the whiteboard. And very quickly you start putting ideas onto the board and it grows, and this, and, you know, how do we do that? And what about that market and investment and this and social media and things that we had to learn. You know, we had to learn, but we knew that the type of people that we were, we knew we could take on information and we knew we could apply it real world. So let's do that. You know, let's just do what we can do, knowing what we know right now to the best of our ability, relentlessly and never giving up. We know we didn't have a fucking quit or a fail in us, and visualize what that a brand would look like to us. What a successful brand looks like. Okay, now let's act and communicate in that manner. And we did that from day one. From fucking day one. Let's set ourselves up for success. Let's create the foundations, strong foundations, and let's build on that. And then we had Steve come in with a small initial investment. Me and Louis put all of our savings in, and we just went in and we committed. We just fucking committed to it. And we didn't sort of half-art it. You know, we did on the side, we were working security jobs, like high-paid stuff, like cherry-picking jobs for, you know, NFL, NBA, Super Bowl, all these kind of big jobs that were helping to kind of, because alongside this as well, and it's worth mentioning, a lot of people say, well, it's fucking all right for you, you know, you had these opportunities afforded to you. You know, you had investment or you had this, but I had a family, you know, and children to support. So you have the worry and that thing of fuck. But I always thought, if this doesn't, my backup plan, because you always look at worst case scenario, fail. What does failure look like? Okay, we go at this for however long. There has to become a point. We're not stupid, you know, people that just say, just keep pushing through. Like, no. You have to know when to quit. That is fucking important.
Do you plan that at the start?
Yeah, you have to know what that looks like, because most businesses, the main issue is they run out of cash. That is the number one reason businesses fail. They run out of cash. They can't manage cash correctly. They can't cash flow. They can't balance sheet. They don't forecast correctly. You run out of fucking cash. And if that happens, what the fuck are we going to do? Do you keep going along? Do you keep trying to pay and keep pushing in? How much do you believe in it? But there has to be a point in, I hate that thing of no quit, never quit. It's like, no, you have to know when to quit. That is the smart man's game. And then I thought, well, if I do have to come to that point, My worst case scenario is, tail between legs, but rejoin Special Forces, And if I looked at that objectively and stood back from the coalface, my worst case scenario was my best case 10 years previous to that. I didn't want nothing more than to join Special Forces, So for me, it was actually step back, look at it. That's not a bad fallback plan.
So you reframed your idea and your scenario. So you've gone, okay, the worst case scenario to me is that I end up back where a position that I'd love to have had 10 years ago anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm literally in a car now where there's no losses.
Yeah. And people, the reason a lot of people don't want to commit to that is they're scared of failing. They're scared of failing, not so much because of how it would make them feel, but because of what the perception is to other people around them. And we had that when we left. We had people close to us. What the fuck are you guys doing? You're in a great position here. You've got great career opportunities. You're going to go and do what? Make clothing. They couldn't understand what fashion. It's not fashion. It's high technical. Yeah, but what? Nobody had done this before from our world, from Special Forces. Nobody has gone out and built a brand in clothing from Special Forces. And so it was unique in that way. But it sometimes confuses people, and we had to go through that, those levels of doubt and anxiety and worry and stress and back in the day and fucking spending every pound like it's your last, really understanding how far money can get you or how far it can't get you. And it's important, so I'm trying to condense that early stage of the first year was so fucking difficult, the hours, the stress, the worry, the concentration, everything that we were doing, me and Louis, it fucking nearly broke us. It was as hard, if not harder, than Special Forces.
Do you remember the revenue you did on that first year?
I couldn't tell you, mate. I couldn't tell you. But revenues for me is irrelevant. It's irrelevant even now, today. It doesn't matter to me what, and we can link that back to success. Clearly it matters, because if it matters in so much that you don't have a sustainable business unless you're profitable with EBITDA. But are you a growing business? What's the investment look like? Where are you ploughing your money? How are you spending it?
Year on year, without going into numbers, what percentage are you growing year on year?
Doubling.
Every year since you started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, if we go back to the start there and me and Louis and what we're trying to plan for and everything else, it's very difficult to explain to people just how hard business is. So loaded with the day-to-day business growth and the meetings that don't come to anything, the phone calls, the investment, the day-to-day learning of social media and product and going through those iterations of samples and testing and developing. And mate, when we launched in 2018 on our website, we had 3 products. 3 fucking products, which to look back now is comedy. And we launched in summer with a fucking Arctic Parka. And that wasn't by design. That was just because it took a lot longer than we thought it would do for the production. So when you look back on that and you're sat in, you've launched your business, you've got a social media platform and following, and I want to touch on social media as well because I want to thank a lot of people. But the website, we launched with 3 products and some T-shirts, a couple of T-shirts, off-the-shelf stuff and caps. And you're kind of like that. We're off. And nothing happens. And you think, fuck. And then you get excited when you get one order. I'll pack that, I'll do this. It's just me and Louis in a small little office, which very kindly was given to us by our investor. We took a small, it was half the size of this container that we're sat in. We've got one little shelf up. We've got some bags and packaging and shipping. We're just learning. We're learning as we go. On the hoof, it's like an out-of-control horse running down a hill. And you're managing everything yourselves, just you two. And then you get another person in, somebody comes and joins, somebody that's going to deal with, the picking and packing or whatever. And then it's a camera or whatever person. Your team starts growing. Then there's 4 of you, then there's 5 of you after a year, but you're doing everything, and I think that's where respect is born in business. I will never ask anybody to do anything here that I haven't done previously myself. And I think you have to earn that respect through doing. Leadership is different. I've learned a lot of things through leadership in the Special Forces, and some people lead differently as well. It's not always a do this, do that. Sometimes it needs that a requirement. In the heat of the battle, there's no time for conversation. It is, I need you to do this right now. And you can't ask any questions. You've got to go, fucking yeah, I got it. Go and do the doing. There's other times where you have to manage different people differently in different situations. And I'm learning that now as we grow as a business as well. And back to the social media stuff in the beginning, social media, for all its fucking devices absolutely helped us enormously in the beginning. We've had incredible people that have helped us out. You know, we've got a great network, me and Louis, through friends, but you build on that. Those relationships and friendships are formed through years. You know, so when you're looking at from the outside in and people saying, "Oh, it's great, you had this people helping you and this and that," we've been so fucking fortunate, you know, and our ambassadors and athletes and other people that have literally helped us out, you know, taking no cash, helping us grow because they believe in me and Louis, they believe in what we're doing, they believe in the product. You know, that changes now as you grow as a business, you know, and you start to, you can't be so one-dimensional anymore. You have to start looking into other areas and expanding, but you know, people like Foxy, for example, helping us out. He had a huge social media following, and I remember looking back, laughing at Louis with our Instagram on the phone, and you know, we had 800 followers, you know, back in the day, and it was sort of growing. And then Foxy did a post with us, and it was like followers. Going through that excitement, you know, as a new brand, like, oh my God, we've gained 2,000 followers in like 2 hours because Foxy's done a post, and then somebody else would help out. And then it was like, right, what do? We concentrate now on what we're good at. Let's just keep going. And you just have to keep going relentlessly, pushing forward. If it's working and you can see it's working, once you get that momentum, that's what you've got to dial into and keep fucking pushing and driving hard home for.
How do you, when you got some momentum, but you kind of, did you ever feel at that point you kind of lose yourself? Because at certain points during this podcast journey for me, I felt, hold on a minute, I'm losing track here I know I've got this big goal over here of being the best education podcast the world's ever seen. I've got that big goal, and I break all my goals down, Staz, and I have all this stuff, and I get all that. But I sometimes get lost in I get so lost in it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I need to step away from this for 4 or 5 weeks and just look at this with a new set of eyes, because I can't see through the barrier. Do you ever feel like that?
No.
So how do I? So how do I, and how does everyone listening to this not feel like that? Because I know a lot of people do.
I think it comes down to planning. You know, I think it comes down to communication. It's difficult. You're on your own. If you can communicate with yourself, you can, but you sound like a madman. But we communicate with ourselves. What does success look like for you, Frankie, podcast? What does it look like? What does success look like in 6 months? Where do you want to be? Where are you now, and where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? So you have the now, the near, the next. And for us, we say, right now, what are we doing? What are we concentrating on? I'm pointing at that because I've got everything, our product roadmap behind and all that sort of stuff. And it gets more complex the bigger the business gets, the more people that are involved.
Yeah.
Granted. But for you personally, I'd say, what's now? What does now look like? Okay, it looks like this podcast. Okay, and it looks like the next week. It's editing. It's then movement. Where am I traveling to? What's the near? The near is probably, 2 to 3 months, maybe 6 months. And the next is, what's the big fucking goal? Who do I want to be in 12 months, 18 months? Yeah. Now, what do I need to do to make all these things happen?
Because the way I've set it out previously is I've got the big goal. I've broke it down into smaller goals and smaller manageable goals. Obviously, I've got a couple of people on my team now and stuff that are working inside to help things move along. But then once I've broke it down to that level, I'm like, okay, who's Frankie Lee got to become in order to get to that stage? Because I have to grow personally as well when I get to that. Not just in terms of like actions, but also like me as a person.
All right, I'll give you an example. Because I've used this technology, and people probably have used a lot of this technology, a drone. So if we put a fucking drone in the table right now, and you weren't controlling the drone, and we fucking fire the drone up, and this drone is 20 foot above you, and it follows you around for the next week.
Yeah.
If you watch that footage back, what would you think about yourself?
You can do more. Anybody that's honest with themselves will always say that.
Yeah.
If you say that, I personally think if a drone was following you, if you think that you're using every piece of your time adequately or every piece of your time towards the right goal, I think you're lying to yourself.
Yeah. And I want to be clear here. That's not me saying grind harder, because I fucking hate that. I hate that mentality of just grind, bro. Just keep grinding.
No, you're saying to me, get fucking focused.
It's fucking bullshit. Yeah. How are you breaking your day down into days to weeks, everything to hour to minute? Are you maximizing the time that you've got? If it is a 7-hour, 8-hour window, what are you doing in that time? Really look at yourself and analyze what you're doing. And is it complementing and adding value to where you want to head?
Yeah.
And if you're honest with yourself, probably 6.5 hours worth of that footage, you'd be going, fuck it, what am I doing? I'm fucking pissing about.
I had a bit of a realization the other day, actually. Not as in depth as what you've just said, which I'm going to analyze when I get off this podcast and probably go through a bit more of the structure with you, because I really want to get it structured. But I had the realization the other day, it's like, I'm sat in my apartment in Peterborough, which I bought when I was 18 years old, right? And I've been to Australia and I've travelled around the world and I've gone to Dubai and I've smashed it in both locations. When I come to England, I always feel as if it's a little bit fucking harder than it has to be, my life, right? I thought to myself, can you achieve what you want to achieve from it? No. So as soon as I said no in my head, the apartment went up for rent, all the stuff went on, started for sale, and I'm literally selling my whole life, and I'm right now. I've got to be free to move. I've got to go where I need to go to get this goal achieved. I know my vision. I know what I want. You ain't going to do it if you sit here. As simple as that. So I've already started to action these plans to make these moves to do exactly what you're saying.
Can I be honest with you, because we're fucking friends? I think from speaking to you and understanding you, I think you're very good at action and you understand the mechanics and the why you're doing things for the right reasons. But I think, and it cripples people now, is time. Time's a finite resource, and it's the biggest and best thing that you can invest, with yourself and to other people. But the problem with time is that, and society has a lot to answer for on social media, people aren't willing or prepared to put time in. Now, it was our 5th year anniversary, a few weeks back, but we were working a year on it before that. So I'm talking 5th year since we launched, so 6 years. 6 years that we've done this. I look back at my military career. I spent 13 years in the military to gain the experience and the knowledge and the understanding to sit in front and hopefully have a nuanced, objective opinion on not just life, but business, and hopefully advice that can help somebody. Because you can't set out on a goal, on something that's big, that can be massive, and say, fuck it, I've been at this for 3.5 years and I feel like I'm not fucking getting anywhere. And there's loads of examples outside of us and this small fucking container of success and people and how they make it and how the pathway to success is just difficult and different for every individual. Some people land on it, they hit quick, they get a couple of good things that happen, and it happens. But if you just keep going and doing, as long as you're not going past that point that we said and you're doing it for the wrong reasons and you don't know when to quit because it's not financially viable, or you're not fucking enjoying it. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, then that's half the battle, isn't it? How the fuck can you put 5-10 years into something and not enjoy it? That blows my fucking mind. How people can wake up, swing their legs out of bed in the morning and not be happy with what they're doing. But that's down to you as a person. You control that. You are the captain of your own ship, and you have to deal with that and understand with that at its basic form. Am I happy with what I'm doing? Do I feel like I'm adding value? Does it fulfill me as a person, as an individual? Because if it does, that will play out naturally over time. And it might be 10 years. I think if we have this conversation in 10 years, you'll be like, wow, you remember? And we will, as ThruDark. We'll go, you remember 5 years, we were doing well, but fuck, look at us now. It's like almost comedy.
When the day I started, I said to myself, this is a 10-year game. This is a 10-year game, Frankie boy. Like you can't, because like you're going to, I knew when I started that I knew exactly what I was going to see, because I've seen this in other industries and other things. I knew that there were going to be people that just get the right podcast and do 100,000 subscribers on the back of one podcast. And I knew there was going to be these type of people. And I knew that along this journey, I couldn't look at them and get resentful of them because it didn't happen to me. Do you know what I mean? It's because everyone's journey is fucking different.
It's I'll say it, comparison is a thief of joy, isn't it? But it's fucking hard not to look over the fucking neighbour's fence, isn't it? And see what's happening and what's going on.
It's hard, mate, because other people's grass is green. You know what I mean? Other people's grass is green, and it's like, fuck me, where'd they get the fertiliser from?
Exactly. But honestly, for us as a brand and as a business, we don't do that. We concentrate on us.
Yeah.
We are that motorway analogy again. We're going. And as you start any journey from business and a new venture, another analogy probably is it's like a wave, isn't it? You start at day one and there's fucking no waves. You're just kind of bobbing around in the ocean with your surfboard sat on it, sort of waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's time, it's days and hours and weeks and months pass and nothing's really, and then you get a little wave and you think, fucking hell, a wave's coming. I'll jump on that. And you jump on the wave. And then the next bit comes, another 2-3 years, bigger wave. And you think, fucking hell, this is all right. I'm getting waves now, and I'm on my board. And then people start joining you along that route. So you imagine this long, stretched out bit of beautiful ocean, and it's me and Louis on our surfboards, and there's small waves, and then there's bigger wave, and then it starts coming in 3 years, and now there's 3 or 4, 5, 6 of you. And the wave's getting bigger, now there's 8 of you. Now some people are like, fuck, that's a 5-foot wave, you know, and we're surfing it, and we're doing what we're doing, but along the ride, fucking somebody will fall off, and it's like, shit. Guy's not made for it, whatever, that's fine. You know, we want you to come along the ride, but you're just not fit for it. You're not fit for purpose, or not ready for that environment. The wave's potentially got too big for you. And then the wave gets bigger, you know, and then you get more people in, and you get specialist surfers in, and you get people that can fucking surf and also teach you how to surf along the way. And that's really fucking important for business. Who you surround yourself with and people. And I guess that was what I'm trying to say there, is that along the way, it's going to get harder. The wave will get bigger. The intensity will increase, but for the right reasons. You know, it's fucking fun, and it should be fun. You should be looking forward to those waves coming, but make sure that you're prepared. Make sure the people that are around you in your team are prepared, and make sure there are people there along the way that can teach and help you. Look at your mentors. Look at who you're surrounding yourself with. You know, for me, we've built the success of the business out from the very start. I remember sitting in our first board meeting, and I'm smiling. Like, we were sat in, you know, Link House with our investor, Steve, and it's me and Louis, and he brings up this spreadsheet, you know, and it's hardly anything on it. It's free products. And I'm sort of fucking laughing at him and saying, Steve, what the fuck is this? And he's like, you know, you're going to have to get used to this. And you will, fast forward in 5 years, you will learn to love a spreadsheet. You'll see the beauty in it. And you'll see, you know, how you can utilize this information to help the business grow in the right ways. And he talks us through what everything means, and, you know, without going into all the detail. But we learn. You learn along the way, and you start bringing people in. And the biggest thing for me in business and successful businesses is people. Surround yourself with the best possible people that you can. You know, and you don't always pick right. Sometimes you get some bad people in, bad apples, but, you know, hire slow, fire fast, and all that good stuff, and those analogies. But for the most part, everybody here at ThruDark right now, hand on heart, are incredible people, super talented, ambitious, driven, because it's difficult when you start a business, it's your baby, and me and Louis are super passionate about ThruDark and about the success of the business. To bring people in, it's kind of like, are they going to have the same passion as us? Are they bothered? Are they swinging their legs out of the bed in the morning going, fuck, I want to nail this today? You know, because they've got different, you know, it's not just a job. Here, it's not just a fucking job. You need people that are passionate. And how do you do that? I think for me, you do that around culture. You build a strong, positive culture that's inclusive for everybody. You get them in and you allow them, you know, that freedom and that flexibility to do the job and allow it, and, you know, and I think nurture and raise the team amongst you. You know, but that's a difficult, challenging process at times.
What are some of the ways then you've brought this culture in? Is it by putting the gym downstairs? Is it by, you know, having a real close, like you don't have in your office, you don't have like lots of single desks. You have one long desk area where everyone works together, you know, in the offices and stuff like that. Is that the kind of way you're building camaraderie?
Yeah, it's emotion. It's camaraderie, but it's a sense of togetherness. It is being inclusive here in terms of what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're always telling people what's happening. We're like briefing, daily briefs. We have a weekly brief. We include everybody into that brief. We encourage the ideas, the communication. When we were in like sort of special forces, like no idea was a stupid idea. You know, we're looking at a complex task, you know, and you could have, you know, you're now in a room full of 30 people from special forces of differing experience. You might have somebody that's been in 20 years that is super fucking experienced, you know, the kind of the guy that everybody looks to for the experience. But, you know, you might have somebody that's only been in a year, but will bring something to the table, an idea that is slightly different, that people go, fuck yeah, that's fucking not a bad idea. And it doesn't matter that he's been in 2 minutes or 2 years or fucking 20 years. Yeah. It adds value, but you have to be receptive and open to that. as an individual, as a leader. For me, I can't just say, I'm fucking Staz, I'm the leader, I'm the boss. Like, shut up, listen in, this is how we're doing it. Because it just doesn't wash. But also, you don't get the best out of people. You don't get the best ideas. You don't get that creativity. You don't allow people to flourish and really enjoy what they're doing. You have to look at things and step back sometimes and allow, because otherwise there's times in business where if I speak first, sometimes, and people know me better than that, they can say whatever they want to me, but sometimes if the leader speaks first, then those people below will go, I can't go against what he's saying here. I can't. It's just not that environment, So you have to encourage the communication, but in the correct manner. But we do that in different ways. We've got a gym downstairs, jiu-jitsu, everybody's involved. Upstairs is all open plan. We've created culture within this unit here. You walked up the walls earlier. We'll probably do a video after of a walk around. But we've sort of brought that culture and ethos and that trust, that unity, the loyalty, all that stuff that we embody as individuals into the business and into the brand. And I think I'd like to feel that is felt, across everybody in the business. I
think one thing's for sure, like, and I've always known this about you. I think, and especially coming in here as well, like you can feel. I could always feel your passion for what you're doing, and feel the fact that you're doing something you love, which I think helps massively. And I feel like everyone on the boat, in terms of everyone rowing, is rowing with you here, right? Whereas some businesses you go into, you realise someone at the end of the boat is fucking rowing in a different direction, and you see it in so many bigger businesses. I mean, how many staff you got now? 50?
No, we're about 33.
33. Do you think as you scale, like to the 50 to the 80 staff, do you reckon you'll be able to keep that culture tight knit? Because obviously as you grow, it gets harder and harder. I suppose every time you add another 10 staff, 5 staff, it must get more difficult, right?
Yeah, of course it is. But I think for me, it comes down to that founder's mentality, which is a great book, which I'd recommend people to read if they're in a position of being a founder. And it's a unique, privileged position to be a founder within a business, but you have to lead with passion from the front and engage with people. It's no good me saying, oh, fucking hell, that's it now, we've done it. Like, I don't need to come in today. We've got the team cracking on and off I go. Like yesterday, we had a great day. The energy was amazing. We're going across, we're launching 5 new products every day next week. And, the creative muscle and might that's required from that across all the departments of the business is huge, but I have to lean into that. I've got to be in there saying, I've thought about this and have you thought about that? And I fucking love that idea, and that's amazing. That looks wicked. Can we tweak? Can we change? And, being there with the team and in the team, being on task and leading from the front, from that environment is super, super fucking critical. You cannot lose ever that founder's mentality. There's like reasons that, businesses fail. You take your foot off the gas, and you're kind of coasting. You've got to fucking stamp down on that accelerator and make sure everybody's strapped in and they're coming with you. You have free fall as well, where sometimes it's out of control, and, you have to understand and recognize and feel with what's currently going on with the business right now. And, don't get me wrong, we're not a polished organization by any stretch, but we are putting people, processes into position right now to enable communication to be better, to enable systems to be better. And it's always changing, from e-com and, how we talk and communicate face to face, but also digitally. How can we inform everybody in the business so that everybody is happy? And these are things that have been happening over the last 12, 18 months. And even now, getting the right people in. We've got a new CEO joining us with great experience. And I know it's cliched, but there are times now where you sit in a room, you should always be in there looking around and with people that are more intelligent than you, i.e. specifically more intelligent for each task. Because if I'm employing people and then I'm having to fucking keep checking and looking over and not trusting their ability, then we've incorrectly hired, in my opinion.
So you've brought on you and Louis a step back, and you're not going to be CEOs. You're going to give that to someone else now.
No, so the CEO role is different. So CEO will sit in between me and Louis, and as the department, as the team's grown now, we've kind of given ourselves our own swim lanes, but swim lanes that look across and into each other's lanes constantly. So Louis' side of part of the ship, as it's kind of set up upstairs, as you look at the tables, you've got Louis as the I guess, MD, so he's dealing with operations and product and development and delivery of product with Ben, the product master, and all the way down, and that entails finance is a huge part of that, you know, and then we've got everything that moves down from varying degrees within that channel as well, and we've got, you know, customer service and all those kind of bits and pieces. And then on our side, so you've got product basically on one side, but obviously heavily led and lent into by finance, and on our side, it's brand. You know, get the product, you know, which obviously I deal with and lean into heavily in terms of product development and everything else. And then on our side is brand. It's now sell the product, you know, and also how do we communicate as a business and as a brand outwardly to other people, but also internally as well. So brand for us, you know, we've got Tommy, you know, an amazing person, Tommy Entwistle, who came from Osprey Europe, that's literally just around the road. You know, he's 16 years experience in the outdoor industry and in Osprey and PAX, you know, took them from pretty much zero to 60 million revenue to their recent exit, and he's now joined as our commercial brand director. So having those right people in at the right time, and you know, Ben coming in under Louis, you know, and dealing with product, you know, at a high level. Ben's got 20 odd years worth of experience in the outdoor industry and dealing with product. You know, now you start setting up this architecture, this task org, you know, of people and how we balance that experience across the table, and now we push it all down, and how now we talk about the communication between all these departments and compartmentally between each other, you know, and what's the mission? You know, I know it sounds stupid as I'm a military person. What's the mission? What are we trying to do? And sometimes we need that. That's what me and Louis do. Stop. What's the mission? What are we doing? Okay, that's a distraction. Now we start looking at other stuff. So on our brand side, we've got everything from e-com, paid acquisition, we've got the creative side, we've got the photographers, the videographers, you know, all these amazing people in their own right, and the digital design people, social media, that are all pulling together for the main mission. Everybody understands what we're doing and why we're doing it.
And obviously, because that's clearly communicated, that is why everyone can be on the same boat. But one thing I want to touch upon is, like, obviously, you were away in the military for, like, you know, 15, 20 years, however long you're in there, and then obviously your business takes up a lot of time. You got jiu-jitsu, you got everything else. What does it take out of you on a family basis in terms of, like, what does it look like for you when it comes to looking after your son, when it comes from, you know, and with your wife as well? That's
a fucking really good question, mate. You got to pay the man, you know, and at some stage, I think, was it Peterson says, you got to pick your poison, haven't you? You don't get to choose yes or no. It's you have to pick a poison, you know, and balancing that out, it's like the seesaw, isn't it? Constantly too much of this, not good for that, and vice versa. And that's a very complex, nuanced, difficult seesaw to get right. And probably now, the place I am in right now, as Staz sat in front of you, you know, 39 years old, 40 next year, what is my biggest concern or worries? And it's balancing that out. It's making sure that whilst I'm doing all this, to make sure and to be mindful that I'm not letting go of this, you know, and what's important. You know, when we strip everything back, what is important to me as an individual? To be a good person, to be a good husband, and to be a good father. And that is above all else, you know. And if I lose track of any of those things and put too much time, energy, effort, and love into this side i.e. business and revenue, and let's chase this and let's go over here, and you know, there's something will break at some point. So you have to be mindful of that, and it's a very difficult balance to gain. And I get a lot of messages from people on social media, and you know, fucking social media again, you know, people only see parts of it, don't they? Like, they probably see me, they come in the morning, we roll, we do jiu-jitsu, which has been incredible for me, you know, in terms of, for me as an individual, when I left, you know, clearly physical fitness was an integral part of my life, you know, because I had to be physically fit and robust to do my job. In its purest, rawest form, I had to be at a very high level of fitness to do my job in special forces. And that doesn't leave people, I don't think, that have done that job before. I don't think anybody leaves the special forces and thinks, fuck it, brilliant. I don't have to be fit anymore. But I think there's a lot of amazing benefits and positives that come with that in terms of looking after yourself. It's the whole, you know, I think we said earlier about that analogy of being on the aeroplane. You know, there's a reason they ask you to put your fucking oxygen mask on first, because you can't look after all of this other stuff until you've got your own shit in a sock and you are fucking sorted, your mask's on, you're getting oxygen. Now I can look outwardly and help other people and focus on other areas of my life. So, and jiu-jitsu's been incredible for that. And shout out to Sam from Reorg, who does some amazing stuff for charity and veterans and on response and everybody else as well. So I kind of needed that. And that was my meditation. That was my focus. And I love that kind of form of it. So I think for me, it's, I know it's a long-winded way again, apologies, but it's about layering all these different things on together. So I've got the physical aspect, the mental and physical challenges for myself to push myself, you know, that fucking white belt mentality to put myself in difficult situations so that I don't drop the ball, so that I don't allow myself to become comfortable and complacent in that area of my life in terms of physical fitness and mental robustness. So I train, you know, jiu-jitsu, I train in the gym and I go for runs and cold dip, all that kind of stuff. So that's one element. The next element, which then, if I don't do this as well, by the way, then the downstream effect of not doing that is pretty catastrophic across all the other elements of my life. If I don't train, I'm miserable. You know, then my wife doesn't get the best version of me, because while I'm with my family and my kids, my 3 boys, I'm thinking about, I've not trained. And I know that's mad, but it does. It affects me because I'm irritable and I'm thinking, I fucking let myself down there. If I drop that, then what else will I fucking allow to drop? And what is acceptable for me to drop? So I have to do that. That's like a non-negotiable, I have to do that. Once that's parked, it's good. Now I can focus in mentally, I'm in the right place to give my family and my wife and my kids the best version of me that I possibly can. So I'm there, I'm present. And this is hard. This is probably the most difficult thing that I beat myself up constantly about every single fucking day, is being a good father, you know, and being a good husband and being present and giving them my all, giving them everything. Because it's not enough just to come to work and ThruDark and be full of passion and energy and push that through to the business, so much so that I am mentally and physically fatigued that when I get home, they just see a bloke or a geezer who's fucking wiped out, who's mentally and physically wiped out, that can't play with the kids, that just too tired to go and play football, that can't fucking run around and chase them. And I'm really fucking conscious of that every day. There's days when I am tired. I've done all this stuff, or I've been away and we've been on an expedition, or I've been climbing or whatever, or it's been a super maxed out day here at ThruDark, and mentally I'm fatigued and I just have to fucking switch that gear. And it's almost like I sit in the car, pull onto the driveway, and I just have a fucking 30 seconds moment to myself where I let the fucking dust settle, whatever type of day I've had. Not every time, it doesn't happen every time, because it's, you know, we're fucking human, but for the majority of times I will reset my fucking brain. I will go in and I want to be the person that they're expecting me to be when I walk through that door. It's fucking fun time. It's daddy's home. You know, my kids yesterday ran up to me, both fucking running, Daddy. That's the reaction that I fucking pray that I get every single day from my kids. Daddy's home. They run, they drop what they're doing, they run up. You know, those hugs, those special moments, me picking them up, then I'm fucking chasing them around the garden. I'm acting like a monkey and they're fucking giggling, they're laughing. And it's those moments that I fucking are better than anything that I've ever felt before in my life, and they're more special than anything as well. And the days that I don't do that, or the days that I let myself down and I'm not that person when I go in, is the days that I absolutely punish myself mentally for. You know, the days that I'm tired, I'm fatigued, or I'm a bit short, or Daddy, can you come play football quick? And I'm on my phone, I'm emailing, something's happened, and sorry, I'll come out in a minute, I've just got to do this, I'm quick. It's like, that's not acceptable. That is not acceptable. You've got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, 11-year-old looking at you. They're looking, they're observing, they're watching what you do. Every single second that you're with them, they're observing you. And that is important. And it's difficult to get that balance sometimes, because life does get in the way. Things happen, you know, stuff happens, external stresses happen that are out of your control that you have to deal with. But as long as you are aware of what's happening and why you're doing it, and we, you know, me and Ruby, my wife, we sit with each other and, you know, it's natural. You'll sit on you'll be watching TV, you're trying to relax. You know, the kids are on the bed with you, and, you know, and you're on your phone, and I'm like, they're trying to engage with you. They're speaking to you, and you're fucking looking at a fucking screen. And then I'll realize what I'm doing and have that moment of, that is terrible. That is terrible. Like, your kid wants to fucking engage with you, and you're showing them that what I'm holding is more important than those little people. And that's what I beat myself up more and more about every day than anything apart from business. It is, you know, I'm reading the, have you read The Daily Stoic?
Yeah,
Is it Ryan Holiday?
Yeah.
He's brought out a Daily Dad book, 365 Meditations.
I saw that, but obviously I can't relate. Yeah,
mate, it's wicked. It's wicked. And what that does to me is, you read. Obviously, it's day dated. So and it's not a big investment. It takes fucking 3 minutes to read a page, and it's every day you do that. And what that does to me, it's me committing to the awareness and understanding of just how important me being a father is to my kids. And I let them watch me. I make that conscious decision to read that book every day, and I'm going to keep reading it now, I think, till they become fathers, and I'm going to pass that book down to them.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
Because that is important. When we strip everything away, what's important, you know, and we can't control our kids, and you know, without going into too much detail, and I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, and we all want our kids to be successful. We want them to be first and foremost, we want them to be healthy, we want them to be happy, and we want them to be successful. But there's some things that are out of your control, you know, and we are the bow, the kid is the arrow. As long as your bow is fucking strong and you can set them fucking sailing on the right path in the right direction at the right time, the rest is up to them. Once they leave that bow, you can't fucking pull the arrow back. You can't. And it's so important that you build that bow at an early stage, make it strong, make it robust. You pull back, you fucking put the arrow in, you aim, and you make sure you fucking point it in the right direction and give them every single opportunity that you can as a father. And for me, that's my job, and that's important for me.
And it's beautiful hearing you say that, because I realised, and I realised this a lot earlier in our friendship than in this conversation, but there's a lot of talk at the moment on social media, a lot of men going out in the world and talking about masculinity. But I think in terms of masculinity, to me, I think you truly embody every area of masculinity for me. I mean, you want to be a good husband to your wife. You want to be the best father you can for your children. You work diligently to make sure that, you know, you're creating a space that's safe for your staff and everything else. And I just think, mate, I just want to say to you personally that I think that's a shining example of how masculinity should be put out into the world right now, which I don't often think it is. I think it's a lot of shouting, a lot of talking about having 16 women, all this other crap. And I just wanted to tell you, mate, because it's just unbelievable.
No, thank you, mate. And it's a constant battle. It's a work in process, isn't it? A work in progress, constantly going through this process in your mind and communicating with your partners and to your kids. And it's so fucking hard and difficult, but it's a worthy cause. There's nothing more worthy than, you know, trying to create that space. But masculinity is a funny one. I fucking hate that term, toxic masculinity. I think the way that the media are portraying men and everything right now is so detrimental and damaging to people. I've got 3 boys, you know, to raise 3 boys, but correctly, but understanding that doesn't mean that we can't be empathetic to people. It doesn't mean that you can be acknowledging of your emotions, you know. But again, to cite Jordan Peterson, you know, the world doesn't need weak men. You know, we can be vulnerable, we can be aware of our emotions, but being weak, it brings nothing to the party. It brings nothing to the table as an individual, as a family, as a neighbour, as a fucking community, as a population. It's just not fucking good. So it is within our capability and possibility right now to go out and fucking do hard things. Push yourself physically and mentally, because what comes at the other end of that is nothing but beauty. You can't argue with that. And everybody that's achieved something that's worth achieving, that does come with sacrifice,
it's fucking hard,
is hard work. I have pushed myself physically and mentally. I don't know. There's no scale, but probably harder than, you know, 90 fucking whatever % of the population. And I know I have. And what comes of that is good things. And I continue to do that every day. And I don't rest on my laurels and think, well, that's it, that's me, I've finished, and I've achieved this, or I've done that, and look at that. And no, fuck that. You keep fucking pushing and trying to find out how you can be a better person at its individual level.
I love that, mate. And I hope everyone that's listening to this podcast that's got to this point has not just listened to what Staz has said, but felt every word of it as well. Because I think this is what I'm trying to create with this podcast, Staz. It's a piece of content that when it's recorded, that people don't just listen to the podcast, they feel it on every level too, so they can implement these things in their life. And I hope you guys can implement a lot of your wisdom, Staz, into their life. But if there's one golden piece of wisdom that you can just impart on this audience that's going to take them 1% further in their life that they can implement today, and it's your last pearl of advice that you could leave for everyone in this audience, and you can't leave anything else, what would it be?
I won't say what I want to say. It's D-back.
Say what you want to say. Say what you want to say. I want the truth.
Well, it's the C word. Don't be a. But I think I won't say that. But I've said it. I think be the best version of yourself that you can be, so that when you remove those two masks that we spoke about, and you're left with your own mask, and you're staring back at the man in the mirror, be happy with the person that you see, because there's nothing worse than looking back at another person or your reflection and seeing who you could have fucking been, and realizing that you could have been that person, and the only person to blame is yourself.
I love it, mate. I love it because it's so self-accountable, and that you can't get away from yourself then. And I think that's one thing I want you all to be left with as well. There's going to be times in your life where you try and get away from yourself, and I think they're the times you most need to sit with yourself and lean in, because if you don't lean in, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, because you can't allow that learning to happen, is what I want to say. Because I've learned this in my own life. There's been times along this podcast journey it's got a little bit fucking hard in situations that I've thought, you know what, should I quit this? I keep going because I don't want to quit, because I know I love this, and you can tell in my voice, and you can tell in what I do. I love every minute of it, but it gets fucking hard. And when you get to that point where it's like, fucking hell, this is fucking hard, man. I'm in Bournemouth today, I'm in fucking Liverpool tomorrow. When it gets to these kind of stages, you got to go, do you know what? I fucking love this, though. I wouldn't have it any other way. You
volunteered, remember? We're all volunteers. Yeah. Lean into it.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, let's get some lunch, mate. I'm fucking starving.
But before we definitely do go, check out ThruDark online. Check out Staz. I'll put links to follow Staz and follow ThruDark, the brand. The brand has some incredible pieces. If you're looking for anything like in the outside space, I want you guys to check them out, to see it. It's the highest quality stuff in the game. It seriously is, and I'm not even saying that just for saying it because you'll say it, but it fucking is. I'm proud of everything you've done. I appreciate it. It's been an absolute honour to share this podcast with you, mate, and much love.
Thank you.
Guys, do me a solid favour. Drop a comment below this video and let us know who you want on the podcast next.